Well, thank you so much for joining me. I was so excited when you reached out about coming on the podcast. Just so everyone is aware, Naked Folk is about sex, relationships, vulnerable conversations, kind of like ridding the taboo subjects that we talk about, and maybe like it feels weird. Like we want to be able to break the barrier, which I feel like you do that very well. So today we have CeCe Flight on the podcast, which I'm so excited to talk to you. Can you say your pronouns and also a bit about who you are, what you do, the things you're passionate about?
Yeah. So pronouns, she, her. It's hard to sometimes say like what I do because I feel as though I'm doing so many things. But I think something that sums it up is creative entrepreneur and artist. But among those things, I'm a fine art model, I'm a nude model, I'm a photographer, I'm a performance artist, and all of those things kind of, again, come back to being a creative entrepreneur and artist.
Yeah, I feel like anytime you talk to someone who does a multitude of things, it's very much like, well, I do all these things and I'm passionate about so many areas, but like, I feel like when you look at your Instagram, for example, you can kind of get an idea of who you are and what you do and what you like about the industry.
Yeah.
So one of the things, you reached out to me on Instagram, and when I looked at your stuff, I was like, wow, this is really innovative and different than what I've seen some other people in the industry do. I just feel like you are, especially your newest Instagram post, breaking ground with like being vulnerable about specifically nudity and self-expression. And I was wondering if you could talk about that, like just in general, like how you feel about it. What comes up for you when you think about your own nudity and self-expression?
I think the first thing that truly it all comes back to is freedom and just being able to be and to exist in your body and your skin and in your expressions without feeling guilt or shame or judgment. But yeah, in terms of being naked and being nude and having that be a part of my creations or my lifestyle, it definitely comes down to freedom and reclaiming parts of myself that were often suppressed, growing up as females or whoever, anyone really, humans, were just, boxed in. Don't show your body. If you do, you're either a slut or you're this or that. And reclaiming all of those terms and reclaiming the authority you have around your body, and you're separating sexuality and nudity and redefining that for yourself, I think is how I come at it in my angle. But yeah, I feel really awesome just like showing my body. I feel strong. I feel powerful. And yeah, I think those are definitely what I feel.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to nudity, like you touched on it, but like the idea that you're not supposed to share your body from a very young age, it's like, oh, you need to cover up, you need to look this way. Mm-hmm. Some people feel even like weird showering, like they don't even want to be naked after the shower. And I think, I've talked to a lot of people recently who have that feeling. They grew up like very isolated and feeling like, oh, I'm not allowed to even express in a certain way. I can't wear a certain top because my shoulders are showing or something like that. Yeah. I feel like that's so common, especially for people who identify as women.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, that's like an extreme thing. I mean, Jesus. But I remember when I was like in 5th grade, the first time that I ever kind of felt like someone was like shutting off a body thing. I think I was 4th grade. And I was like wearing a little tank top, 4th grader. And a teacher was like, you need to wear a bra or like something. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm in my body. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm literally in 4th grade. Yeah. And so that was like the earliest memory of feeling like there was something wrong with just having a body and being able to either see your breasts or your arms or whatever. And then, as we age, it's like, oh, you can't wear shorts down to here, do this. And at so many points in our lives, we're restricted in the way that we live in our skin or our bodies or just all of those things.
How do you, let's go back into your journey. Like, when did you really start to feel like you could express yourself with nudity?
Well, I come from a pretty, I'd say, alternative family. Kind of like a hippie vibe. My grandma was this feminist, naked woman who I was constantly hearing stories about her being naked on the beach and running on the street naked in the 60s in California. So my family is very just like, whatever. You have a body, sick. Don't, be totally like rude or anything, but just live your life. But yeah, I mean, with just living in an open family of like, if I'm a little child, I can walk around without my top on or do whatever or that. And then being around my friends, I think helped to have pretty open-minded friends that are like, you're naked, here's this, here's that. Especially when you're like growing up, to have friends like that who allow you to express it. It really helped me launch into a life of more freedom. But yeah, it wasn't probably until like COVID that I was doing this for the world, for the world to see. It wasn't like I was like documenting or trying to necessarily like create things out of my nudity. It was just a way of being. It wasn't.
It was just like your normal everyday life.
Yeah, it wasn't advocacy or anything like that. It wasn't even expression necessarily. It was just, I have a
this
body.
Is normal. Yeah,
yeah,
this is normal.
This is me. I have a body. I live in it. Cool. So,
So during COVID, what really like launched you to then share with the world? Because I know COVID changed a lot for everyone. And I think everyone started to think of new ways to make money, new ways to find freedom when we were like stuck in our houses. Was that really something that prompted you to start sharing online?
Well, I kind of was already doing that with friends. I'd say that because I've been doing photography and modeling for a while, it became paid and more of a career during COVID. But before that, I was like, let's do this naked photo shoot out in nature, friend, not like just photographer paying me. But I think that, the closing down of the world and all of those things, everyone going online, it was, I guess I'll start sharing my stuff. And then I kind of got into a community of nude models that helped me find community in that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can share this with people and like maybe get paid for it. That's dope. This is an option for me. Hell yeah. And then of course OnlyFans was huge in terms of COVID, like the March 2020 boom of OnlyFans.
I remember.
It was like, everyone get on OnlyFans. And that was super empowering too. It was like, oh my gosh, I can just be here and do this. And I had never felt more accepted or fulfilled in those creations that I was doing because I could share it now. And I was like, wow, I'm like good at this thing. And here's this way that I can share it with people and then share it on social media and whatnot. And then I just fell into this awesome community of the nude models, truly. Like the nude model and photographer community out in LA is just so accepting and beautiful and connective and free. And I just somehow fell into that and it really felt right. So I'm just going to do this. Quits job, full send to LA during COVID.
That's amazing. I just feel like that's exactly what you want when you're switching into something, that feeling of being accepted and having community and being able to collaborate with other people too, I think is so cool. I know I've seen you do like collaborations with photographers and stuff. Like, didn't you just do one here as well? Like visiting, you worked with somebody here.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was... It wasn't a nude shoot, but it was fun. And I mean, it opens the doors, especially when you're freelance in terms of these things. Like I don't model under an agency or anything. And when I can just work with whoever I want, whoever speaks to me and, just people who I align with energetically as well. Yeah. It's cool because they'll accept the multifacetedness of my creations and who I am, even if we're not doing a nude modeling gig or whatever.
You align in all of the ways, and you're able to communicate what you would like to see in your work, which is cool.
Yeah.
When you started also, like when it was more obviously on OnlyFans and maybe a bit more mainstream, did you feel like you received backlash from anybody or like a negative attitude? Because I've talked to a lot of people who do OnlyFans, for example, and there's always a mixed opinion and there's always somebody with a negative opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to talk about both positive and negative because of the stigma and trying to get rid of the taboo.
Totally.
That it is.
I mean, 1000% I agree. And we're talking like negative experience being on OnlyFans and doing OnlyFans?
Yeah. Or, in general, posting like nude photography on Instagram even. Like, is there, there's like multiple areas where it could go.
Totally. I mean, before I even started up my OnlyFans, it was funny because I was just kind of taking more cheeky photos on Instagram, things that were still artistic and whatever, cheeky, however you want to do that. But some of my friends were like, oh, CeCe does porn now. And it's like, well, wait, whoa, what? Like just having a body and taking a photo of it, that's what you consider porn?
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to me how people are so quick to assume that a naked body equals porn and this and that. And I'm like, whoa, there's like a lot more going on in this world. And you need to maybe expand into that. And again, going back to the multifacetedness of humans and expressions and the fact that we can separate nudity from sexuality and also still have sexuality and express it in a way where we either like consent or have that intention. And obviously people are going to, if I post a nude, maybe someone's attracted to it or they're doing whatever behind closed doors to it. I don't know, but I'm not about to necessarily shame that. I think, we can have respect for that like gray area of it all.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot of gray areas in that sense. Like,
yeah,
it can it can mean so many things. And I think automatically, as you're saying, people, when they see a naked body, we are conditioned to then think, oh, this is porn or this is, not like shouldn't be out there. Or if it is, it means that there's like some man looking at it in a certain way, which maybe, but.
Yeah. And in terms of negative experiences, I think I have had some, and it's so funny because some of them are from friends who are progressive, and it just boggles my mind that you can be advocating for so many other issues and be progressive, but there's a line. And when it comes to the body, it doesn't matter. If you're naked, then it doesn't matter if you're progressive or not. Like some of my most progressive friends are like, please don't like be topless at the pool, or can you just like tone it down? Like, please just don't like do this. And I'm like, and I'm not trying to go against their wishes or boundaries or anything, but it does make me curious and question why are we not thinking about being open and progressive to existing in our bodies? It just boggles my mind. So I have had some friends get upset that or judge my work, my art, and not necessarily want to be associated with me, which sucks. But what are you going to do if people reject what you're expressing and don't want to understand it, and they just want to jump to conclusions and assume and blame or this and that? It's not, you can't win. You can't.
And ultimately, you want to be aligned with people who are accepting of you.
Totally.
And there are so many people who are free and willing to accept you and probably like partake also in the nudity.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about sexuality and nudity as two different things because they are. And when people can separate that, like, sure, there's times where it combines, but the majority of the time, if you're naked, it's not sexual.
Totally.
And to think of those things in different ways is really hard for some people. Do you think, do you have conversations with people about that? Like that it separates sexuality and nudity at the same time? Or do you feel like people generally think that they need to be combined?
I think people generally think they need to be combined, but I do love talking to people about that and trying to just crack away at any like preconceived notions we have about living as humans with bodies and sexual organs and whatnot. I like to not necessarily push people or get into arguments, but I love creating a container where I can be like, hey, we're in a safe space. Tell me your opinions. I know maybe some people would find them archaic or something, but let's talk about them. And I'll talk to you about these things that might seem a little taboo to you. Yeah. And you can kind of come to an understanding of how it's melding together and how you can reshape your, I don't want to say morality, but just update your morality around those types of things. Because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, it's morally wrong to broach those kinds of things and to talk about that, and including nudity, but more so even sexuality. It's like, don't do that, you know?
Oh, yeah. That's like such a broad topic, and everyone has such strong opinions, and they're like, well, maybe in mixed company, I shouldn't say anything or like have an opinion necessarily.
Totally.
For me, like as a sex and relationships writer, and now having this podcast, it's like interesting for me to see the people in my life who are super cool with it and who aren't. And I know you know that feeling. Like my family, when I first started writing about sex and like nudity, not even in the sexual sense, but just like getting involved in nude events. Like I went to a nude dinner party. I don't know if you saw. Yeah. And I've like started to explore some other ways to like get involved in the nudist community, which is cool. Yeah. 'Cause it is really freeing feeling. And I think my family is like, oh, Haley's just doing her thing. Like at this point, they're like, so no. Like it's supportive. Just, they're just kind of like, they're kind of just like, oh, like it's a Haley thing. She's just going to do her thing. And like, it's fine. Like she's happy. At first they were like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Like, I think the first time I ever wrote about sexuality, my family was so like, why are you putting this on the internet, you know? And I don't come from a very conservative background. Like some people in my family are, but like my immediate family is pretty open, especially my dad. He's like so open and we're so close. And so even he was like, what is this? But then like I went to a nude dinner party and I posted a photo of it on Instagram, and he was like, he called me. He's like, Haley, like I see this dinner party photo. He's like, are you naked? Like with all these people? I'm like, yeah, like, and he was like, why? I'm like, well, it's just like about being vulnerable and having moments of connection that don't involve like, you know, sitting at a dinner party, drinking alcohol and like having the, you know, it was just a freeing experience. And I explained it and he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like you do you. Love it. So it was like refreshing even like for me to experience it for the first time and then go into it. So I think like when a lot of people experience nudity in public or like with close friends, it transforms into this less scary thing that's like, oh, yeah, I do just have a body. It's fine. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not like weird for being naked. It's not like anyone's looking at me sexually.
It's not like you're trying to be sexual. You can turn that switch on and have that intention. But yeah, it doesn't always, sexuality or nudity doesn't equal sexuality. So
it's absolutely true, which is, you know, the taboo thing. People just assume it. Yeah. You posted something on Instagram. I want to pull it up because I want to ask something about something you posted very specifically. Okay, let's go. Okay, this photo. Oh, yeah. First of all, love this shoot. I think it's so stunning. Such a cool vibe. Really awesome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so you were talking about like basically the judgment and how you hide things. You can hide things, or we as humans hide things to not be judged. Can you talk a little bit about that and what inspired you to post this specifically?
So I think what inspired that caption, and it's always, so hard to, sometimes captions are like, oh, okay, here's have a great day or something. But that one was specifically due to the nature of that shoot and being with those people, the photographer and the rope artist and the photo assistant. They were all just such amazing people. Shout out to them, beautiful humans. We were all just kind of talking about being in the community of content creation and nude art modeling or kink. We tend to have, most commonly people have aliases because we can't share with the world. There's like what would the term be? There's like punishment socially if you express these things that you're into. And that's why we have an alias, is to protect us from that. And among other reasons, there's a whole conversation around that. But anyway, around this, it's like, if I have this other side of me, I can just separate and compartmentalize that and hang out with those people. And then I can have these people. And that's, works for some people. But for me, I think that I feel inauthentic and like I'm not truly being myself or giving myself how I would want to the world and to people when I am doing that. But yeah, we were just having a lot of conversations on that photo shoot about what we're into and what we like. And I was naked and I love it because I feel so free and I can just be naked around two men and a woman and feel like I'm not either sexualized or this or that. And we can all talk about those types of things and those topics and be in a safe place and be like, oh, I'm into this thing, but you're into that thing. And we felt so connected and free, and yet we go back into society or wherever and my friends have to like hide who they are and what they like because most people will deem it as like ugly, dangerous, this, that, morally wrong or whatever, what have you. That it's so funny because that photo shoot, it was a flow. It was very free flowing. The rope artist, Rucifer, I called him an hour before and was like, hey, dude, are you free? Do you just want to come tie me up and at this photo shoot? I don't know, let's spice it up. Yeah. So it's just funny because I wasn't necessarily planning to talk about those things while, like, at the photo shoot, that was happening. And then
the conversation was just coming out naturally.
Yeah, it wasn't like we had planned this concept. And a lot of my work, I feel like, comes from a place of free-flowing creativity. So after the fact is where the meaning and the reflection came from. And it was just reflecting about our lives and how, we tend to hide a lot of the things about us because we're afraid of that judgment.
I've seen it just from being a journalist and interviewing people that are in the space or like who are into certain kinks or I went to XBiz Awards in January and I was there with Erica Lust and I was interviewing her team and got to like meet a bunch of other people who were like on OnlyFans or like in the space in some facet. I even interviewed like directors, which was super cool. And there was not many journalists there because they were afraid of the judgment coming from media who aren't really supportive of what they do. And like, even separately in interviews when I've talked to people who don't do sex work, but do like more like nude photography, or I have a friend who does like only bikini photos and it's not like even classified as sex work typically, and people still judge her for that. And there's like this lens of not wanting to let people in to know all of the facets because yes, people are going to judge and society isn't always accepting. Yeah, it's wild to see, like, just from, like, I'm super progressive and I talk to so many people that are either in the space or, like, adjacent or who work with sexual wellness companies. And it's very much in all realms with anything to do with the body. It's almost shut off. Like, this is just not it. And I think it's so important that people like you exist because you are talking about it, like, in the mainstream and people know about you and care about what you have to say. And like, I was looking through the comments on that post and I'm like, these are overwhelmingly positive, which is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of people, that's one thing I haven't received on Instagram and PG platforms is hate. I think most people that follow me are pretty supportive because I think they're learning a lot about themselves and can resonate with the words. I'm sure the hate's happening out there with other people. I know it is. But I guess it is helping a large demographic of people. And that's all I want to strive for is just the conversation around it, like growing as people who are more understanding and committed to the compassion around those types of things. And the fact that we all can live very differently and express with our bodies very differently. Whether you're a nudist, not doing any form of sex work, or if you're, full service, whatever sex worker and everything in between, or just not even that community, the fact that we can have the dialogue around it, that's what I'm striving for. Everyone doesn't need to be a sex worker or a nudist. Like, I'm not asking for that. I'm not saying it's bad for you to wear clothes or to like do whatever. I just want the acceptance and the softening into the dialogue around it.
Yeah, that's every person that I've talked to in the space has said that exact same thing. Really? They're like, I'm not trying to like make you do this or make you feel a certain way, but like a softening, that's a good word to use for it, is like of this idea that we can all be and live and just do, and that's it. It doesn't have to be this like crazy weird thing that you judge. When it comes to kink and the areas that you've worked in around kink, can you talk about some of that and what has inspired you most?
I think that in terms of kink, I come at it from a psychological, connective place. And I think that's a lot of what kink is. A lot of people think it's just, spanking and flogging and all the things and pain. But it's about connection. And that's where I find myself in that community. And I have a few friends that have just been so insanely impactful in my life just through the kink experiences that we have. And one of my friends, is it okay if I name them?
Oh, yeah, okay, of course.
So one of my friends, Kitten with Fangs and Rucifer, they are just the most beautiful people. And they said, my sex has kink in it, but my kink doesn't always have sex.
Oh,
so,
I love that. That's so cool. Actually, I really resonate with that.
Yeah. And a lot of people assume that there has to be a sexual element to kink, and there can be. It's fun. It's great. It's you can create what you need in the world of kink. And that's what I really like about it, because I don't even need to be naked to do kinky things. And a lot of kink that I've been involved in has been, how would I say, almost like trauma therapy. There's a lot of healing in the kink spaces and within the kinky groups. I think there's a lot of shame and guilt and repression of desire. And when we lift that up in a kink space or a kink space, it can just become healthier. So you're not having these desires or feelings manifest underneath the layers of things. You're hiding it, and then it's manifesting in a weird way or doing something that is not great, but you could be enacting that same thing in a kink setting and then getting what you need from that experience and healing things, parts of you, or just having fun, being like, hey, I'm into this shit. Let me go do it with people who are also into that shit and have it be a cool, fun, healthy space.
I also think people have this idea that kink is only one thing. Like, I feel like when you talk to people about kink, they're like, oh, it's only like BDSM in a way. Like, there's so many variations of kink that exist that like maybe I don't even know about, and I'm like a sex writer. And like, when I talk to people about kink, I feel like there's usually this thing of shame. Like if they don't know that you're into it or that you're like accepting of all kinks, they're like, maybe I don't want to tell you, or you know, but having a community and a space to be free and practice those kinks, even if it's not sexually, is so cool. It's very freeing.
Yeah. I totally agree. And there's a really great book. You would probably love it. It's called Existential Kink.
Oh, I have not heard of this.
I think you would love it. And it's all about applying kink to your life, to the mundane tasks that we have to endure and or the things that we deal with where, I don't know, we have to clean our room or go clean our car or something or talk to our boss. It's like, how can you apply, like how many things in kink can actually help you in your real life become a better person, become a more just well-rounded and motivated human, or just to get the shit done that needs to be done
in a more fun way.
Yeah, and it covers so much more. I mean, I'm scratching the surface of the explanation of that book, but I would definitely say read it. It totally changed my perception of things, especially with relationships. I think a lot of the times we fall into patterns, and, you know, whether you seek certain people based on whatever happened in your life or something, it's like, whoa, if you come at it from like a kinky angle, it's like, oh, I'm attracted to that thing. Maybe I can become aware of this and accept that part of me without necessarily being like, oh my God, I need to completely change. I'm worthless because I can't get out of this pattern. It's like, no, how can I like reimagine this thing and take ownership of this pattern and do it in a way where it's actually benefiting me, but I still can kind of access what we want, because you go towards patterns because you're used to it and you kind of want
just a natural draw.
Yeah. I think one of the examples in there was, tending to go towards relationships that are unhealthy, or you want to be used, or what's the word, like ignored or something, yada, yada, yada. But you can get that in a kinky setting. It's like, how can I create or find someone that likes to do that and then apply that in my life so that I am fulfilling that thing and it's not manifesting in a really toxic relationship.
Yeah.
You know?
That is an excellent point, because when you think about kink in your relationships, like if it develops naturally and you guys are playing in that sense together, that's really like a safe space often, and it can be a really safe space. It not always is, but then to like, if your pattern is to go to a toxic relationship that isn't right for you or the other person, you can find that in a kink community too.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and yeah, within the community, you can find people that maybe want to do that, but you don't really want to have them as your partner. You just want that need filled. You want that itch scratched. You just want to feel that thing. And that's okay. Like, some people do that and they're like, this person does this for me and it helps, and then I get the hell out of there. And
and then it's just like I go back to my life and can enter into that space whenever I feel like it. I just went to I don't know if you know what Sanctum is.
I do. I haven't been to that, but I've heard about it.
So it's really a wonderful experience. I've only had a great time. It's a luxurious sex party. But so many people go that like don't have sex. Like, you don't have to. Like, there's a misconception there that like if you go, you have to participate. Some people's kink is just watching. Some people's kink is just being in the space where they can be nude and not be judged. Or like, I've talked to several women who go and they don't play with people, but they have, they wear lingerie and like beautiful outfits, and they have this feeling of like empowerment in that sense. There was so much happening at this last one, but the one that I kind of took away from the most was the second one that I went to, because you just see so many variations of people. There's like 100 people at these parties, and they all are looking for different things, but you can find it there, and you can go single, you can go with your partner, you can go with your multiple partners. Which is so cool. So I've had like experiences around kink that have mostly been really positive.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I would say the same. If people are looking to explore sexually or
Not.
just, yeah, or not, the kink world, and sure there are outliers in every community, but the kink world generally is so respectful and so, I love the etiquette of it all and the consent, it's just really like the etiquette around consent and just the awareness of other people. And it's not this slimy thing where you're like getting touched or this or that. It's in a kink setting, generally, I'd say that people are so respectful. And tapping into like one of my own experiences where I was a performer for one, we went and we had... basically, me and my friend were submissives, and we didn't talk to anyone. We actually ignored them because we were submissive. We're doing a high protocol submission performance, and it's so cool because you ignore people and they respect it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I will not speak to you." And that's like the kink thing. It's like you're doing your thing. Oh my god, like hell yeah, let me like go.
Everyone's like supporting each other, rallying together.
And yeah, you can find anything you want and need in those types of spaces and explore safely. And with people who are just fucking cool and interesting and open-minded.
That is like the common thing that I always feel when I talk to people either who do sex work, who are in, the kink space, who are just like there for their own like pleasure and not maybe like a job. It's very open-minded, and I always appreciate that. Yeah. It just feels like you don't find those people in other spaces as much. Or, when you peel back layers of people, when you get to know people more, then you can kind of see the open-mindedness. But I think like in those spaces, it's so highlighted because if you're there, you're generally pretty open-minded.
Yeah, it's the space for that. Yeah. And people coming together for that. So,
and it's such a safe space.
Yeah.
And usually inclusive, ideally.
Yeah, ideally. The ones that I've been to have definitely been extremely inclusive. And
same here.
Yeah.
I think I've been to one, event that maybe wasn't as much, but I never went back because that's just not my vibe.
Yeah, and that's it. You have to like find where you fit in and fall into those categories and energetically align, and it will happen. So, yeah. When I attended, because I went to one of the naked food experiences, and when the night that I went, we did a naked breath work. Okay. And I've done all sorts of naked things, but that one was super awesome because the instructor she was walking around naked, and it was amazing. And full support of all of the things being melded together and just tying that back to nudity. And
yeah, I did the same thing. The first nude, I've been to two, and the first one we did breath work, and it was so cool. It was just not what I expected at all. I've done breath work before, but this was a different experience being nude. Like, it was almost like you're shedding all of the things that you would normally hide behind. So you would just truly have to be vulnerable.
I love that, yeah.
Like, you're like, I am literally naked with a bunch of strangers, and we're also like breathing through trauma and healing. Like, totally. This is, if you can do that, you can do anything in this life.
Yeah, and it's such a unique way to connect with people, to go just like a little bit deeper. I mean, that's a lot deeper for some people, but to be in those spaces with people and to, shed those layers of whatever we're carrying with us. It's so important. And I think it's so beneficial to go beyond just walking down the street, looking at our phones, trying something new with people in a vulnerable space is awesome. And it can make you a better person and get perspective around experience and people coming from different walks of life and whatnot. So
yeah, that's all amazing. I completely agree. Where can people find you? Like, because I know sometimes people have multiple Instagrams because Instagram and Facebook and Twitter sometimes don't like certain content. Yeah. That's another thing I wanted to ask you about. Like, what has been your journey with like that? If you've had any issues like posting things, if things have been taken down.
So I think I'm an anomaly in the social media game in terms of I've had things taken down, but I'm still operating from my very first account. I know I have friends who are like, I'm on my 12th account. Fuck you, Zuckerberg. But yeah, I haven't. Anyway, people can find me on Instagram, CeCe.flight, and then CeCeFlight.com. But yeah, I can't even, it's such a huge conversation in and of itself, the censorship aspects around our bodies on social media, and Instagram is the number one. And I know TikTok is doing that kind of stuff. Obviously, you can't have, I don't even know. I haven't even deeply entered the TikTok game because I'm like,
TikTok is interesting because it seems like they're censoring nudity, but like censoring certain words. Like you can say certain things, but if you have them in the captions, then it doesn't like it. So like if you say sexual wellness in a caption and you don't like mark out the E in sex, like then they take it down. It's very weird.
Yeah, I can't even.
I'm like, this is like a whole universe of weird censorship. And I'm hoping that as people can talk about it more and more, like there's a woman that's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks who specifically works to break that censorship.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, I'll have to send you her info. She does a lot of sexual wellness content as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a little flame inside me that wants to advocate, and I do outside of the app, but there's also this slight like balancing act that I'm doing of like, I want to advocate online, but I also rely on it for work. So it's a matter of, do I want to test the algorithm or the policies and get my account deleted potentially and lose whatever. So yeah, kudos to the people that are really, fighting the fight in that regard.
There are, I know, like organizations that you can donate to that are like helping to fight for like certain causes. And I think that is really cool, especially if you are in the space that you are in where you obviously rely on this for income and also just like your own creative expression. And you don't want to necessarily jeopardize that, but still be able to kind of contribute in some way. Totally. Yeah. Yeah, is there anything upcoming that you're working on that you're excited about?
Honestly, I was really excited about this, and I've been traveling to a new city every single month since the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
So after this,
wow.
I was actually going to hunker down and chill out. Yeah, I think that's the plan.
That's a good plan. We all love like staying at home sometimes.
1000%. I was going to actually say I am in the process of creating my first art book. So that's a fun thing. And I do need to be home for that. I've tried before and my mind just can't work traveling. It just doesn't compute. So that's probably one thing that is exciting that I'm looking forward to doing is just staying at home, working on my computer.
Is it a photo book or is it like something?
It's a photo book.
Okay.
Yeah, photos that I've taken of my friends. And it is
that's so cool.
A nude photography book. And there's some clothing sprinkled in there. It's not just strictly nude. It's more, everything from toying with nude, partially nude, to fully nude and clothed. But a lot of nudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah.
As it should be. It like most matches what you are aiming to do.
Yeah. And it's all of my friends and the beautiful people I've been able to work with and find community in and share this lifestyle with. Yeah. It's all about them and how they've kind of influenced me and the things that I see that are beautiful and how they all meld with that.
I love that you describe it as lifestyle. Because it is. Like, it's totally a lifestyle. And, like, it's one that is maybe, like, considered taboo, but hopefully not in the coming years.
Yeah, I hope that. Yeah. We're all just out here trying our best and pushing for that.
And, like, trying to live the best life you can.
Yeah.
And be happy and, like, unbothered by negativity.
Sure. For sure. Especially within this realm. I mean, I think a lot of people just want to shut down the judgments. And if people do have that negativity, it's like, they're just negative and this and that. But I truly do think it starts with those conversations, because there's the disconnect. And the further we're disconnected from the people that think differently, the further we're going to feel ostracized in the way that this lifestyle is. And I love operating between that and trying to be a bridge for that. So
that's so good. I'm so happy that you're able to come. I know you came all the way from LA to see me.
I loved it. I was like, hell yeah. First time in New York.
Yeah, why not do a podcast? And like a newer podcast at that, that's trying to like build these conversations and talk about things that are important and taboo by society's standards and maybe uncomfortable for some people. Like we've talked about vulvodynia on here. We did an episode last week on vaginal care, which is not out yet, but it will be. And then we did divorcing young, which is like also like something that is weird for society to handle. They're like, divorce is complicated, you know, like all of these things.
Relationships, marriage, all of that.
And especially as women, I think it's just important to have all of these conversations, no matter what it is. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I love what you're doing, and I think it's really important and impactful, and I hope that you can just keep pushing and having those conversations and writing your awesome stories and working with amazing people. I think it's really, really important for the future and for all people. And then I'll just shout out all my great friends who are naked and accepting and beautiful and compassionate. And I love you all.
Oh, yay. And hopefully some of your friends will also be on the pod, which would be super cool. Thank you so much. I really am so happy that you got to come, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Haley.
Thank you.